On today's show, the Houston Rockets blow out the New Orleans Pelicans, but at what cost? As Amen Thompson suffers an ankle injury in garbage time of this game, chasing a triple-double. What this injury means for Amen and for the Houston Rockets rotation moving forward. Who needs to step up the most in his absence, and so much more. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Also, check out our Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate all of that support. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym, mourning the loss of Amen Thompson in the Rockets rotation for the next 2 weeks. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. Rockets get the 146-117 win against the New Orleans Pelicans, and this is a game that we'll probably talk about later in the show, but the game doesn't matter, because what matters is Amen Thompson got hurt in garbage time chasing a triple-double. Goes up for a jump shot, comes down, rolls his left ankle. Thankfully, he was able to walk himself off the court. That's always a good sign. And look, we're going to walk through what happened, why it happened. You know, we'll take a look at all the facts and what we know about the situation, the injury so far, whether or not he should have been in the game at that point in the, in a blowout loss or a blowout win, I should say. Who needs to step up with Amen Thompson out of the Rockets rotation, what this means for them over these next couple weeks without him. So, yeah, Rockets were beating the doors off the Pelicans. They were up by 30-something. Amen Thompson stays in the game to chase a triple-double, as he was one rebound shy of recording, I believe, his fourth triple-double of this season. Not sure which one it would be in his career, but I think the fourth one of this season. And watching this game and watching it like on the broadcast, it was actually funny because both Ackerman and Hollins were talking about how Ime is a player's coach and how he's gonna let him in, stay in the game and chase that triple double, and how that's, the confidence that can build for a young player is invaluable, and all these different things. And it all sounded well and good. And literally the possession where Ime was subbing in his, clearing the end of his bench and basically, signaling, yeah, this is officially garbage time. Amen Thompson thought he was getting subbed out, and then he stayed in the game. And literally the very next possession, he goes up for that jumper, comes down on, what's his name's ankle, Carlo Matkovic, and lands funny, twists his ankle, and that's all she wrote. He was able to walk himself off the court gingerly. Some teammates came over, helped him off. He was seen leaving Toyota Center in a walking boot and crutches, which is everybody always gets all worried about the walking boot and crutches, but that's very standard operating procedure for most leg injuries until they know the severity of them at this point in the NBA, because you want to prevent any further swelling or damage or anything like that to whatever's going on, regardless of if the player's like, oh yeah, it's just tender or whatever. Like, they throw them in a walking boot, just make sure they're okay until they get the MRIs done. After getting the scanning and the imaging and all the, doctor work done the following day, it looks like Amen Thompson is going to miss at least 10 to 14 days with this ankle injury. And this could not come at a worse time, because unfortunately for the Rockets, they are in the midst of what was a 6-game homestand. They've got 5 games left, and they got off to a good start. They got the blowout win against the Pelicans, but this homestand could be make or break for this Rockets season as far as where they ultimately land in the Western Conference playoff race. And not having Amen Thompson during one of the most crucial stretches of the season, where you need to stack up as many wins as possible Ideally, they need to go 5-0 for the rest of this homestand. That would be best case scenario. And they're all against, lower tier quality opponents. I don't think there's a single like high quality playoff caliber team or, top end playoff team in the mix, if I'm not mistaken. They're all teams that are worse off than the Rockets. So they should be favorites in each and every one of these games. But not having Amin Thompson is a huge blow. Nobody on this team does what he does on either end of the floor. He's the team's best perimeter defender. Hell, he's the NBA's best perimeter defender, not just the Rockets' best perimeter defender. Check out this stat. Amin Thompson has held opponents to just 39% shooting as the contesting defender this season, which is the best in the NBA among players to contest at least 600 shots this season. He's also the only player in the NBA with at least 75 blocks and 75 steals so far this season. He's absolutely, or I should say was absolutely, in the running for some defensive player of the year considerations, especially with Victor Wembanyama being shut down for the year. And a lot of people wanted to just hand him the award. And I'll be honest, with how bad the Spurs have looked without Wemby, maybe it was deserved. But, Amin Thompson, Dyson Daniels, Gobert, like I'm trying to think of some of the other big names, Jaren Jackson Jr. There are a lot of names that could be in the running. SGA might get some, Lou Dort might get some DPOY votes, but Amin Thompson could have been in the running for DPOY, but he's not going to be able to after missing this huge chunk of games. Maybe he'll still hit the game cutoff, but it's just frustrating that he's missing this time due to chasing a triple-double in garbage time of a game that was already decided by 30 some odd points. And that's kind of that's the frustrating part about this is, I don't think it's worth crucifying Ime Udoka over this decision. But at the same time, this is a Rockets team that has looked exhausted at times, that has looked beat up and worn down as the season has progressed. And for a guy like Amin Thompson, who on an average night plays 35 to 40 minutes a game, expels so much energy to do what he does on a nightly basis, he'd be one of the guys that I think you'd want to prioritize rest for the absolute most, rather than chasing a meaningless stat like a triple-double at the end of a game that has already been decided. So it's frustrating for those reasons. Amin shouldn't have been in the game to begin with, and then he got hurt. Again, some karmic retribution there. So basketball gods poking some fun at the Rockets, unfortunately. It is what it is. And now the Rockets have to find a way to survive without Amin Thompson for these next couple weeks and still be able to find a way to stack up quality wins against less than opponents in order to solidify their playoff standings as we approach the end of the regular season and going into the NBA postseason. Because again, you do not want to be, if you're the Rockets, you do not want to be anywhere involved in that play-in tournament bracket. That is now the goal. The goal is not home court advantage. The goal is just stay in the top 6 of the West. If you can do that, I think the season should still and could still be viewed as a resounding success. But things can get real murky really quick if you fall into that play-in tournament bracket. How are the Rockets going to survive without Amin Thompson? Who needs to step up in order to plug the gaps and holes left by his absence in the rotation? Also, he's not the only Rocket that got injured. We'll talk about Reed Sheppard's injury as well, and so much more. It's all coming up right here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the very next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off and order up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. So many different ways that you can take advantage of this offer. Maybe you're at work the next day, you want to DoorDash yourself a little lunch. Maybe Rockets are playing a back-to-back the next night, and you want to order yourself some food for a watch party or hosting an event, anything like that, just check it out. There's so many different ways that you can take advantage of this offer. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when any player scores 50 or more in a game. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the very next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon until midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right. So not only was Amen Thompson injured, rolled his ankle in garbage time, but Reed Sheppard in the previous game against the Pelicans broke his thumb. Apparently it happened on a drive trying to strip Zion or contest Zion on the way to the rim. And I'll be 1000% honest. We did that recap pod that night. I could be mistaken here. I don't think there was even a blip about that on the broadcast or discussing or anything about Reed's injury. We didn't find out until like the next day or after the fact that Reed had gotten hurt. So now not only are the Rockets missing Amen Thompson, they're also missing Reed Sheppard. And I'll be very quick with the Reed Sheppard injury. He's expected to miss 4 weeks. So, spoiler alert, Reed Sheppard is likely done for the entire season. We will have likely seen the last we will have seen of Reed Sheppard in a Rockets jersey this season, barring any garbage time minutes that he may get in the postseason. And I say that because we're sitting at March 10th, right? Playoffs are barely a month away. If he misses at a minimum of 4 weeks of action, there's no way that Ime Udoka is going to try to reintegrate Reed Sheppard in the playoffs as a rookie. So Reed's season is essentially over unless there's garbage time minutes somewhere, either in a blowout loss or a blowout win for him to get some on the court burn. So really sucks for Reed, but his season is more than likely over at this stage with a 4-week injury with that fractured thumb. The good news is there was it was like the lower part of his thumb or something. So like, that's like the easier part to heal. So, speedy recovery and well wishes to Reed Sheppard as well as Amen Thompson, obviously. But back to the kind of the elephant in the room here is, what are the Rockets going to do? What the hell are they going to do trying to make up for the production of Amen Thompson in their lineup? Because again, nobody can do what Amen Thompson does for this Houston Rockets team. Nobody on this team is the defender that he is. Nobody provides the level of play finishing and versatility that he does offensively, both as an on-ball presence and playmaker, getting downhill, creating for his teammates, or as just an elite play finisher, whether it's off of cuts or dives to the rim or playing out of the dunker spot down low and playing off of guys like Jalen Green and Alperen and Sengun, attacking the offensive glass, being the best athlete literally every single possession that he's on the floor. It's hard to replicate that. It really is. But to quote one of my favorite movies of all time, Moneyball, the Rockets can recreate him in the aggregate. Sort of. There are 3 very specific guys that I'm looking at that are going to be leaned on heavily in order to try and produce what Amen Thompson usually provides within the Rockets rotation. And one of them seems pretty glaringly obvious here, and that's going to be Tari Eason. Tari Eason is about to be leaned on much, much more heavily than he has at any point prior this season to make up for the loss of Amen Thompson, especially on the defensive side of the basketball. We've already seen Ime Udoka maybe trying to recapture a little bit of the essence of the Terror Twins lineup by including Tari Eason in that starting lineup alongside Amen Thompson. But now he's going to be leaned on, Tari is going to be leaned on for his defensive strengths, for his size, for his versatility, all of the gifts that he brings on the defensive side of the basketball. Now, again, unfortunately, Tari and Amen are very stylistically very different defenders. Tari is a chaotic, playmaking kind of defender, whereas Amin Thompson is a bit more disciplined and is more of the I'm going to lock you down individually one-on-one defender, whereas Tari Eason is the I'm running purely off instincts and I'm going to blow up plays and I'm going to gamble and shoot the passing lane and go for steals and go for, maybe I'm going to over-rotate and go for a block shot at the rim, things like that may or may not always work out in the Rockets' favor, but the chaos and the energy that he provides does usually help Houston. Tari's the closest thing that they have to being able to replicate some of what Amin Thompson does defensively on a night-to-night basis. So Tari Eason is going to be tapped to do that. TBD on what the starting lineup is going to look like, though, because now with no Amin Thompson, you're no longer faced with that kind of impossible question of, okay, who should we start? Who comes off the bench? So far, it's been Jabari Smith Jr. filling that bench role. Total team player, consummate professional, hasn't complained at all being moved to the bench, and has embraced that role since coming back from his injury. But now you might be looking at an outcome where it makes a lot of sense for the Rockets to just go back to their previous starting lineup, the one that won them so many games earlier this season, because now you don't have the argument of, okay, well, you need to keep starting Amin Thompson. You can't bench Dillon Brooks because he's the best shooter on the team and he's a veteran and he's got, the politics of it all. So Fred VanVleet, still coming back from his re-aggravation of his ankle injury, he's named number 2 that the Rockets are going to have to look at heavily to produce in the absence of Amin Thompson. Amin has become a fantastic playmaker by necessity in the absence of Fred VanVleet. Amin has really picked up his ability to generate high-quality shots, to make life easier for his teammates, and to attract defenses and read how defenses are game planning against the Rockets and make the proper passes, whether they're insane highlight reel level passes, inside the paint, under the rim, no look, whatever, lob pass, all the different things that he does, versus just simple, easy reads, little kickouts to the corner. If the defender helps off the strong side shooter, things like that. Amin's growth as a primary ball handler and facilitator for this Rockets team has been monumental. And it's going to be really hard to replicate what he's been able to do. Because again, Fred is not that type of playmaker stylistically. Fred is a much more careful playmaker, much more methodical in his level of play. And at the end of the day, the Rockets are going to need Fred to step up from both a playmaking perspective and realistically a scoring perspective. They need Fred to be the guy that they're paying $40 million a year to close out this season. That Fred can't come back into the rotation and have nights where he just goes, 1 for 8 from downtown and only racks up a couple assists and, whatever. They need Fred to be a consistent, 15-ish points a night, anywhere from 7 to 10 assists, and very low turnovers, 1 to 2 turnovers max. They need Fred to be the guy that they're paying him to be at this point in the season. He's gotten away with it earlier this season of not producing at a very high level, of struggling at times, because at the end of the day, Fred is kind of the training wheels for this Rockets team. And the success of this team has largely been predicated on how good or how bad on a night-to-night basis the young guys are. How good is Jalen? How good is Alperen? How good is Amin Thompson? How good is Jabari, Tari, all that. They need Fred to step up, though. They need Fred to earn his bread over these next couple weeks without Amin Thompson. And that means leaning on him whenever he can return to the Rockets rotation as a primary initiator and as a playmaker, as well as they're going to need his scoring punch. They are. They're going to need help from Fred scoring the basketball. He's not going to be able to have those horrendous off shooting nights, because if he does, it's going to be really hard for the Rockets to find where they're going to make up that little scoring pop that Amin Thompson brings to the table, that anywhere from 12 to 20 points a game on really good efficiency that he generally provides. Another area that I forgot to mention for Tari Eason that you've got to try and recreate in the aggregate with Amin Thompson is the rebounding. And that's probably the biggest area that Tari can help in, is continuing to crash both sides of the glass, defensive glass and offensive glass. And that's also something that can be mitigated a little bit by the Rockets utilizing their double big lineups that continue to look really, really good in the minutes where Alperen, Sengun, and Steven Adams share the court together. So hopefully leaning further into that dynamic of the Rockets rotation with Adams and Sengun can be another way for them to kind of make up some of the loss of Amin Thompson and his insane rebounding presence that he generally provides every single night that he's suited up. And the last guy here that's got to step up with no Amin Thompson in the rotation. Need Jalen Green to dust himself off and figure out where March Jalen Green went. Because the Jalen Green from last year that went full-blown supernova with no Alperen Sengun to close out the season for the Rockets, we have not seen head nor tails of that guy so far this month of March. He's had some really rough offensive performances. He's had some solid playmaking games mixed in as well. But Jalen needs to find a way to lock in to close out the season and get back to playing at a consistently all-star level player, or at an all-star level to round out the year. Because if he doesn't, I don't know where the Rockets are going to get their production from. Because again, this is a team that relies so heavily on the sum of its parts being greater than the individual collection of talent up and down the roster. And again, losing Amin Thompson is such a significant blow to this team, a team that's already missing their floor general, vocal and emotional locker room leader in Fred VanVleet. And TBD on how much longer he misses. I believe he's questionable ahead of the Magic game. But they need Jalen Green to be the best version of himself to be able to win some of these games. They need Jalen to step up and get back to 20 to 25 a game on decent efficiency. They need him to be that lead facilitator. And unfortunately, with no Amin Thompson and still potentially no Fred VanVleet, it's going to become even easier for opposing teams to key in on Jalen Green as the one and only primary facilitator and playmaker for this Rockets team, or perimeter playmaker, I should say. So Jalen's going to have to really figure himself out and lock in, and it's going to be really, it's either going to be really difficult, because if other teams can just key in on Jalen and force the ball out of his hands, then other guys are going to have to step up and make good decisions. But it starts with Jalen. It starts with him understanding when and where to get rid of the basketball, how to make those solid reads. And if he's just flat out not knocking down shots, like in this game against the Pelicans, 14 points, 5 of 15 shooting, not great. He's had a bunch of games like that lately where the Rockets are still able to be competitive, or they're still able to win, despite the fact that Jalen has more or less an off offensive night. But he needs to get back to some of how he was playing previously. He needs to get back to January Jalen Green. That's the guy. March Jalen Green showed up a little early, a little bit more ahead of schedule than we expected, and he needs to tap back into whatever he was doing in January for this team to be able to reel off a bunch of wins and start creating some separation and some comfort in the standings out west. So those are the three guys that I'm looking at, and you know, the expectation should be on those guys to deliver in the absence of Amin Thompson. Coming up, want to share final thoughts from this Rockets-Pelicans game. Maybe take a look at the lay of the land of the Western Conference going forward. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Look, I don't know about you, but I'm Houston born and bred. I'm going to be pulling for University of Houston, Kelvin Sampson and his team all through March Madness, and you can too. Get in on the action with FanDuel. Again, you could pick your favorites. You can stay in the action. Tournament games happening almost every single day. There's always something exciting to bet on, and it's easy and it's fast. The FanDuel app is so simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So go to FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Again, that's FanDuel.com for your shot at $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, I guess we can finally get to the Rockets-Pels game a little bit. Feels so silly to have to talk about all that other stuff first because of an injury that probably shouldn't have even happened in the first place, honestly, as I'm exasperatedly finishing off this episode. Look, Rockets completely beat the doors off the Pelicans in this game. They got started with a 39-28 first quarter. They added on to more of that in the second quarter. They took a double-digit lead at halftime, and they were just piling it on quarter after quarter after quarter. Dillon Brooks had a huge scoring game, 27 points, hit 7 3-pointers. So the good version of Dillon Brooks with the floor spacing and the knockdown shooting and the high scoring and all of that. And that's the kind of, look, those are the kind of performances that Dillon Brooks can give you. And as long as he consistently keeps giving you those insanely efficient scoring nights where he's keeping the floor spacing alive, and he's been the Rockets' best shooter now 2 seasons in a row, somehow, surprisingly. That's why he's still in the starting lineup. And that's why it's such a ridiculous puzzle to try and solve for Ime Udoka of who and which pieces he should move around and not start and all that stuff, because Dillon Brooks' floor spacing is invaluable. The other guy who's spacing the hell out of the floor in this one was Aaron Holiday. 20 points, 4 of 9 shooting from downtown. He couldn't miss. Holiday and Brooks together were on fire in this game. A combined 11 of 20 from long distance, 55% shooting from beyond the arc in this game for those two guys put together. Really strong performances from them. Holiday off the bench, obviously DB in the starting lineup. Felt like Alperen Sengun this game was so much more decisive with his decision making, and so, oh my God, first off, I don't know, like, in so many insane posters from Alp in this game, had at least 2, maybe 3, at least 2 actual like huge like poster level dunks, and then had one that was almost a poster where he went up and got fouled, got hung on the rim a little bit. Couldn't quite convert that one, but man, that might have been the best one if he had made that one. And then had what is potentially going to be a assist of the year candidate, where he drove down the baseline, got up in the air under the basket, like he was going to go to the other side of the rim and try and like reverse it in for 2, and saw Amin Thompson. I don't know how he saw him, maybe through his ear or out of the back of his head. I have no idea how he saw it, but elevated and then hit a on target, on the money bounce pass to a cutting Amin Thompson to score at the rim. Just one of the best passes of Alperen Sengun's entire career, in a career that is already littered with insane highlight reel level passes. Unbelievable. I think that was the best play of the game. That best individual highlight of the game to me was that pass. It was absurd. But as I'm waxing poetic over Sengun's passing ability, he had a strong game. 20 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, couple steals, couple blocks, 7 of 11 shooting. He was 6 of 7 at the free throw line, so we like to see an Alpi who's hitting his free throws. But the biggest thing, again, to me, was it felt like he was doing a much better job making quick decisions based on what the Pels were doing. Whether that was him getting into whatever attack he wanted to make early, whether that was in his post-ups where he's facing up, just making quicker, snappier decisions. And that's been an issue literally all season long for Alperen Sengun. And maybe it's the Pelicans. They're an easier team. You know, they're not a great team this season. You know, they're still a plucky, kind of tough out at this stage when they're healthy, but maybe this can be the start of Sengun, or maybe this is the start of Sengun recognizing, hey, I need to be quicker in what I'm doing on the floor, quicker in my decisions. I can't wait for things to develop as slowly as I have been before, because that's when he gets into trouble with double teams and triple teams and turning the ball over and you know, forcing himself into difficult situations. This felt like a really good game from Alpi, where he was making quick, good decisions and capitalizing on it, whether it was him scoring the basketball, drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line, or creating for his teammates. Just a strong all-around game from Alpi in this one. talked about Amin Thompson chasing that triple-double. Amin was fantastic, too. 15 points, 9 rebounds, 11 assists. Had a block shot in there, 7 of 11 shooting. Really quality night from him. Tari Eason, 12 points. Really quiet on the counting stats for Tari. Only 2 rebounds and 1 assist. And tell you what, those numbers are going to have to... Those are rookie numbers. We're going to have to get those numbers up with no Amin Thompson in the lineup. And then Jabari Smith Jr. off the bench. 14 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 6 of 9 shooting. Nice. Looked a little bit more comfortable shooting the 3-ball in this game, and that's going to be the biggest thing for Jabari, is just getting back to where he was at shooting the basketball prior to his hand injury, because he was shooting the absolute lights out of the ball. And if the Rockets can get back to that version of Jabari Smith Jr., where they've got Dillon Brooks shooting the ball well, Jabari shooting the ball well, you get Fred VanVleet returning, who, albeit has been a little bit more volatile this year from 3, but historically is a knockdown 3-point shooter. That's the kind of floor spacing, and those are the kind of players that you want to position around an offense led by, ideally, the bread and butter 2-man game of Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun, especially as you're closing down this season and looking towards what is hopefully a healthy postseason run for this Rockets squad. Couple notes on the defense in this game. Thought they still did a really strong job on Zion in this game. He hit double the amount he was 5 of 15 last outing against the Pelicans. He went 10 of 19 in this one, so better efficiency from Zion. But the Rockets also kept him off the foul line. He only attempted 2 free throws in this one compared to I think it was 12 in the prior meeting. So they did a much better job just flat out not fouling him. Zion was a flat out Pelicans team worst, minus 37. Minus 37 in his 28 minutes of action. That is a really rough plus minus. On the opposite side of things, Amin Thompson was an insane plus 39 in his minutes for the Rockets in this game. So just kind of literally both ends of the spectrum there, good and bad, from Rockets to Pelicans. And then they did a much better job on Trey Murphy. Like, you could tell that was something on the scouting report, that they closed out harder. They were kind of like, they were in Trey Murphy's chest, in his jersey. They didn't give him like the airspace that he was getting, the freedom of movement that he was getting in the first matchup, where he got super hot early in the first quarter and then couldn't miss. Didn't see that again in this game. Just 13 points, 6 of 12 shooting, went 0 of 4 from downtown. Some of that is a little bit of the streakiness in Trey's game, but it's also just the Rockets defenders did a much better job of forcing him off the 3-point line or forcing him into tougher, more contested looks from around the perimeter, rather than, again, giving up those wide open shots or miscommunicating on defense. So overall, a strong defensive outing from the Rockets, limiting Zion, limiting Trey Murphy, held CJ McCollum to just 17 points on 6 of 13 shooting, so not a great night from him. Overall, good win against a bad opponent. Frustrating that you lose one of your best players. It is what it is. Next man up mentality. Now the Rockets have to figure out how they're going to stack these wins without Amin Thompson in the rotation. And at the end of when there's light at the end of the tunnel, they've got to reintegrate Amin Thompson into the rotation with like a couple weeks before the postseason starts. So that's always fun, trying to figure out how you're going to mix a guy back in after he's been absent. It would seem that all signs would point to the Rockets reverting to, at some point, their old starting lineup now that Amin Thompson is going to be out for an extended period. But we'll see what Ime Udoka ultimately decides to do. What do you think the Rockets should do in the absence of Amin Thompson? Do you think they should change the starting lineup back to what it was earlier this season? Do you think you keep Tari Eason in the starting lineup, still bring Jabari off the bench? Who do you think needs to step up the most with Amin Thompson out for these next couple weeks? Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember, the best way to help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Also, check out the daily Locked on Rockets newsletter. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.